We're going to be looking at our polynomial functions of higher degrees, but just by the factoring aspect. So, hopefully all of this is reviewed. What's the very first thing we want to do when we're factoring a polynomial? Absolutely, look for that GCF, that greatest common factor. Taking a fourth degree polynomial, perhaps all of them have an x squared or something like that. So then it has, you wind up with a trinomial of a second degree, and it makes it a lot simpler to factor. If you have yourself a binomial, in particular a difference of squares. So if we have that a squared minus b squared, what are the factors? Think of complex conjugates, which we did. You can't say, I'm not going to look at that. Absolutely. So if we do have that difference of squares, I have that binomial, a squared minus b squared, it's just a minus b times a plus b. And if we have ourselves a trinomial, what should we do? Some of you just know it as far as reverse FOIL or whatever have you. There's also the crisscross method. Again, this is where I'm talking about there's multiple ways of factoring. So we're going to look at one. Again, all this should be reviewed, but again, if you're still having difficulties with the factoring aspect, come to tutorials, and there are other methods we can cover. And if it has four terms, give up and go home. Factor by grouping. Again, hopefully with having this, knowing these facts makes the factoring a lot simpler. Again, always try to start off looking for that GCF. So here we want to factor x to the 6 minus 4x squared. Is there a GCF, Francie? Sure. So what would it be? X.
Oh, I said exponent, but...
So it would be what then?
X.
Absolutely. Even behind what there, Habib?
X to the 4th minus 4.
Absolutely. And what do we have in Michael? Sorry? What do we have now with that x to the 4th minus 4? We have ourselves a binomial. What type of binomial? Absolutely. So just because you take out your GCF or just because you do one factor doesn't mean that there's another factoring step involved. So in this case, we wind up with x squared times x squared minus 2 times x squared plus 2. And that's as far as we need to take that. With the next one, 2x cubed minus 13x squared plus 20x. Aaron, do we have any GCFs there? Okay. Absolutely. And what should we do next here, John?
Crisscross.
Absolutely. Use your crisscross. Use any method you want, but the one that you guys probably learned with was the crisscross method, where we just take the factors of our first term, so my 2x and my x, and then we take the factors of that last term, the 20. So here with the 20, all sorts of options, right? 20 and 1, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. First things first, what are the signs going to be? Both of them negative, actually, because when I multiply, I get a positive, so it has to be either both negatives or both positives. And when I add, they need to be negative. So we know we're dealing with two negative signs. I know I want to come up with a 13, so of course I'm not choosing 20. Right? So it's either going to be my 10 and 2 or my 4 and 5. So let's start off saying, okay, perhaps -5, -4, or -4, -5, we don't know. The crisscross method, what do we do? Multiply, absolutely. So let's see, my 2 times negative 4 gives me, and my 1 times negative 5. Sure enough, we get that negative 13 telling me my factors are just 2x minus 5 and x minus 4. So we get our, we still have the x that we took out originally. Coming up with that x times 2x minus 5 times the quantity x minus 4. You do not have to solve it this way, folks. If you have another method that you use, that's perfectly fine. What about C? We have 2x to the 4th plus x squared minus 6. What should we do here? Is there a GCF? How did we know to use the x squared? Can I use x cubed and x? Aren't those factors of x to the 4th? So then how do we know this? How did Brooke know to use both x squareds? Absolutely. When we add them up, we need to come up, the only other term I have there is x squared, so we know we're not going to be using x cubed or x. So in this case, the only choice is that 2x squared and x squared. The minus 6 telling me what? The signs are different. So either we're going to use the plus or minuses, so either the 6, 1 and the 3, 2. You experiment around. Perhaps you try minus 3 and plus 2. Right, if it doesn't work, what do you do, folks? Yeah. Try something else. Instead of minus 3 plus 2, what about plus 3 minus 2, or 6, 1? So here, 2 times 2 gives us a positive 4. 1 times negative 3. We come up with that positive 1, which is what we were looking for, right? So then we just have our factors of 2x squared minus 3 and x squared plus 2. Yes. And one more. 5x squared plus 29x plus 20. What do we do? Sure. Crisscross method, all right. What are my signs? Both positive. So either 20 and 1, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. You can try that out. That's what she said. So 5 times 5, 25. And 1 times 4, 4. Sure enough, we get that 29, which we were looking for. So again, my factors I just read straight across then. As 5x plus 4. Again, for some of you, you say, hey, I know a different method. I use the box method or something else. Perfectly fine. What about this? 10x cubed minus 8x squared plus 25x minus 20. What should we do here, Sophie? Absolutely. Since there is no GCF for all, well, first I'd look for that GCF, but there is no GCF for all 4 terms. So absolutely. So if we say we want to do a factor by grouping, just look at the first 2 and say, what is the GCF there? The GCF of those first 2 terms.
X squared.
Okay, and what about these?
2.
Absolutely. So 2x squared. Leaving behind what there, Stephanie? Minus 1. Absolutely. And now we just look at the last 2, right? 25x minus 20. Tommy? Is there a GCF there? All right, so plus 5, leaving behind, Allison?
5x minus 4.
You know if you did the factor by grouping correct, if you had those same factors. The factor here being 5x minus 4, so we can pull out that common factor now, 5x minus 4, leaving behind what? So 2x squared plus.
But it's not like 5x minus 4 squared.
I'm sorry? No, this is just, again, this is like a common factor.
Oh, wait.
So my 5x minus 4, 5x minus 4, I only have two terms here, right? Because the terms are separated by addition or subtraction. So just like I pulled out an x squared in the previous one, right? Here I'm just pulling out the 5x minus 4, and what's left behind? Well, in this first term, 2x squared, and in the second term, just 5. So last one, Alexander, what should we do here? Is there GCF, at least in the first two terms? What about my x's? Absolutely, there's an x squared in common. So when I pull out the x squared, right, I still have the x minus 5. What's left over is that minus x plus 5. Well, that's not what we want. We want that x minus 5. So what should I do? Absolutely. Factor out a negative 1, which is just going to change all the signs, right? So now we do have that same factor of x minus 5. When we factor it out, pull out the x minus 5 from both terms. So from the first term we have x squared, and is that it?
Minus 1.
Absolutely. Don't forget that understood 1, which we don't write. Am I done that?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Somebody said difference of square still. We now have that the factors are x minus 5 times x plus 1 times x minus 1. Okay, hopefully this was a review, but does anybody have any questions?